Okay, so in today's video, we are going to learn how pirates make their money. Let's get straight into this. It'll be an interesting one. Let's go.
There's roughly 195 mostly internationally recognized countries. But within more than a dozen of these countries, from Mexico to the Congo to Yemen and to Myanmar and more, there are literally hundreds of rebel groups operating as well that the world map doesn't often show. Each with their own agendas, and each with their own territory they exert some kind of control over. They range in size from small-scale local insurgencies like the Lord's Resistance Army in Uganda, led by Joseph Kony, up to large-scale threats to the entire government and order, like the Houthis in Yemen or the Free Syrian Army in Syria. And then, sometimes as in Afghanistan, a rebel group like the Taliban can eventually succeed in overthrowing the government entirely and becoming the new regime who operates the state. But what's fascinating is that regardless of the size, the scale, the location, the goals, or the ideology of all these different groups, it always turns out that there's one thing about them all that nearly always remains the same.
Alright, so it's not just about pirates, it's also about rebels as well. So it's gonna look at everyone.
The primary way they all make money to continue funding their operations.
Everyone that does bad things.
There are lucrative methods to choose from, like taking donations from sympathetic donors abroad, stealing resources like oil and rare earth elements, and then selling them to buyers who don't ask too many questions, selling and transporting illegal drugs, kidnapping and ransoming journalists, government officials, Westerners, or other people who are perceived to have cash. Or, in a very creative method utilized by rebels in Somalia, opening up a criminal pirate stock exchange that anyone can theoretically invest in. In the town of Haradhir, roughly in the center of the Somali coast, the Wall Street Journal reported back in 2011 that there were around 70 maritime piracy operations listed on the town's pirate stock exchange. Geographically, the Somali coast is well positioned nearby to the Gulf of Aden, a body of water that all vessels have to pass through as they enter or exit from the Suez Canal further to the north in Egypt, which is the primary trade route for everything traveling between Europe and Asia. As a result, some of the most valuable cargo in the world flows on ships traveling right next to Somalia. So, essentially, the entrepreneurial people of Haradhir figured out that they could fund their piracy missions into these valuable trade routes by offering up investors shares into operations that could be purchased with cash, gas, boats, or weapons. If the operation proved successful, then the investors...
The thing is though, like, I want to see how they actually... Like, no way they attack ships like this, right? Surely. Like, there's a movie on this, and it's Captain Phillips, and it's such a good movie. 10 out of 10. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it. But, like, how would a small boat... Because they have, like, protection on the ships and stuff. They have guns. They will have to. But, like, the small boats, how are they even catching up to these big boats? You know what I mean? Like, they're tiny. I want to see, like, what kind of boats they actually... Like, if one does happen to rob a ship like this... Like, how is it done, and what I want to see, like, the pirate boat that will attack it and stuff, and
would be paid out a portion of the pirates'
I wonder how
profits.
it happens.
Once it was funded, the pirate
like, no way they use boats like that, surely.
Hostages on Western cargo ships. Once taken, the pirates could earn up to a $4 million ransom from the ship's insurance company per job. And then, when successful, the pirates would return home and distribute the profits out to the mission's shareholders. Allegedly, one woman who invested in RPG-7 for around $500 on one of these missions received a $75,000 return on her investment from the pirates.
Wow.
A 150 times return on investment. Almost overnight, the impoverished town of Haradhir suddenly became flooded with expensive luxury cars as the piracy investors reaped their rewards. This ingenuitive method of raising capital is similar, though, to methods used by rebel groups all across the world. Rather than fighting and risking lives and money to take over entire territories or cities, rebels, insurgents, and partisans the world over can instead finance most of their operations by simply taking control of strategic infrastructure like roads, bridges, highways, or, in the case of the Somali pirates, maritime trade routes.
Crazy.
On land, it pretty much works like this. A rebel group desperate to advance their cause and in need of cash to finance their operations decides to set up a small checkpoint along a roadway with a few armed guards, along with some intimidating-looking weapons. From there, the playbook is simple. They just demand a tax or a fee for everything and from everyone that passes through. And while that sounds pretty simple, this method literally makes billions of dollars a year for all of these groups across the world. And it's the primary way that nearly all of them make most of their money. And the scale of these roadblock operations across the world can be truly staggering. Take the
Bro, listen, right? Listen. Right. What if the ship route, let's say it's just here, for example, right? Let's just say it's here, right? It's here. Boom, right? You gotta go through here. What if you got pirates doing a roadblock here, then another group like here, another group here, another group here, another group here, another group. You know what I mean? Because they all want money, bro. They all want money. The boat's just gonna be like, what? I can't pay everyone. You know what I mean? Like, what? They're gonna be broke. They're gonna be broke. Like, what will happen if they just roadblock everything? Literally every inch, dude.
Democratic Republic of the Congo, or DRC, which is well known across the world for being one of the planet's most resource-rich countries. All on its own, the DRC contains 70% of the world's known sources of coltan, a vital metal that's used in electronics, as well as a third of the world's cobalt, nearly a third of the world's diamonds, and a tenth of its copper. In total, it's estimated
Bro, how is it so rich?
The DRC's vast supplies of raw materials could be worth in excess of 24 trillion US dollars.
Holy
of course,
shit.
There are some rebel groups operating within the country who are actively fighting with the government over the control of these valuable resources. But it's just so much easier and less risky to instead find a road, set up a roadblock, and begin taxing vehicles, which is exactly why
the government's not going to give up that, surely.
Across the DRC,
we have so many military people on that.
From any valuable raw resources. It's the roads, along with the trucks and the people moving across them, that are the much more valuable and easier to control resource. An article from Foreign Policy written by Pierre Schouten, a senior researcher at the Danish Institute for International Studies.
That's not the amount of groups.
Out more than 800 of these roadblocks across just 2.
Bro, yo! You won't want to leave or go anywhere. Bro, I get annoyed about the UK's motorway. Where you gotta pay, like the roadblock or whatever you call it, the little checkpoint thing, right? And that's one in the UK, right? £5 it costs to go past, just because it's quicker. Pay toll, right? Bro, you travel here, you're paying armed guards just to pass the road everywhere.
Provinces in the DRC,
No way.
North and South Kivu. That translates to roughly 1 checkpoint every 10 miles that people have to pass through. And in total, they bring in an estimated $50 million a year for the various rebels of the DRC, with around 120 different rebel groups operating such checkpoints and roadblocks across the country. The DRC is a prime example of a fragile state, where the government hardly controls its own territory. In reality, on the ground, control of roads and highways are shared and disputed with these 120 different rebel groups. And the DRC is hardly the only example of this. Over in Central Asia, Afghanistan has been mired by conflict for decades, and the geography of the country is perfect for rebels to set up roadblocks at strategic choke points. The entire country is covered by mountains and is therefore dominated by a single circular highway that connects all of Afghanistan's major population centers together, and is pretty much
so
the
easy
only
for
path
them
available to move between them.
Is that what Afghanistan's really like? So like the main cities are on the corners right here, and then the middle is just mountains. What?
It's incredibly easy for a group to set up a roadblock somewhere on the highway.
I kind of want to see like what it looks like inside. I've never really took a look at Afghanistan.
Cities, which is exactly what's been happening here now for decades. During the Afghan Civil War, there were hundreds and hundreds of checkpoints and roadblocks set up.
Oh my God, is that what it's like? Is that actually what it's like? Just all in the mainlands? Like in the middle of Afghanistan? Holy fuck.
Over the country by tons of different rebel groups and factions, which is partially how the Taliban first emerged to prominence during the 1990s, because they were vowing to destroy all of these illegal roadblocks that were getting set up by other rebels, which obviously easily and quickly won them the support of the Afghan truckers and traders, who became some of their most loyal and fanatical supporters. However, it wasn't long before the Taliban too learned how raising money through this method was just too easy.
They did it.
Pretty much beat every other option. So today, it's estimated that there are somewhere around 10,000 checkpoints and roadblocks set up all across Afghanistan.
No
One of the
way.
country's most important routes from Herat to Kabul
No
alone
way.
is estimated to bring in the Taliban nearly $200,000 a day from fees and taxes they collect. The same
What?
situation is largely true.
Yeah, but like, how do people in Afghanistan afford that? Because like in the UK, in no way we're paying that much money. You know what I mean? And it's not exactly like a very rich country either. That's mad. That's
where
mad.
All of the main roads are completely littered with roadblocks that finance fighters all across the country. And in true
Bruh,
rebel entrepreneur
look at that.
roadblocks that finance
Look at that. Jesus Christ, I don't know what's happened here, but fuck.
all across the country. And in true rebel entrepreneurial spirit, many of these rebel groups and factions inside of Iraq will literally lease the rights to operate certain checkpoints and roadblocks from the Iraqi government itself. And the same kinds of situations are taking place right now across Syria, Yemen, Myanmar, and Somalia, which is all around sort of the prime innovator space in the armed rebel financing sector.
Bro, this is mad.
Al-Shabaab, a militant Islamist group operating within the country, has of course set up loads of their own roadblocks and checkpoints throughout the territory inside of Somalia that they control. But what separates them from other groups is that they'll make truckers pay taxes at only one of their checkpoints once, and then give them a sort of certificate that grants them safe passage through all of the other Al-Shabaab checkpoints in the country.
That's not
And
too
then,
bad.
in order to make sure that the truckers stick only to their own routes, they'll just constantly attack all of the other routes that they don't control in order to ensure that all of them stay dangerous, while continuing to ensure that theirs remain open and safe. One of the greatest misconception in most modern conflict zones, and especially those controlled by rebel groups, is how, so often, the news will show territory they supposedly control in huge swathes. But in reality, as we've discussed, that's not really how any of this works. Most rebels, insurgents, or partisans only care about controlling the roads, and they're usually not really interested in the surrounding empty deserts, jungles, or mountains when there's no financial incentive there. The trade routes hold all of the value, and looting—
Bro, like people, the trucks and the truck drivers, they're just they're gonna just have to adapt to get some crazy ass tires and go through the desert and the mountains, man.
And pillaging them is where the money really is at. And to make matters even worse, Western companies and businesses are often just perpetuating this entire problem. Through nearly all of these checkpoints, everything is taxed by the rebels who control them. And that includes, well, everything. And it doesn't exempt Western companies or aid organizations. In order to get around the stigma of paying money to armed, violent rebel groups in developing countries, these Western companies and aid organizations usually pull off a sort of loophole. They just don't pay the checkpoint taxes directly themselves. Instead, they'll hand off their logistics operations in these regions to local companies who charge them a flat, upfront fee for all of their services, with all of the checkpoint taxes already priced in. That way, Western companies and aid organizations can claim that they simply don't really know what's going on in their outsourced logistics. It enables them to turn a blind eye to the rampant practice, and people in the West will generally never hear about it. Unless, that is, you're watching this video right now.
Yep.
So all in all, from roadblocks to piracy,
Mad.
there are many, many unconventional ways that rebel groups across the world can raise the funds needed to finance
I can't lie, I did not expect
but
this.
Unfortunately for them, investing in something like a pirate stock exchange is extremely risky and can result in complete losses when things don't go according to plan. Thankfully for you, though, there are safer and less risky alternatives to the pirate stock market that you can apply any money that you've got just sitting around in your bank account towards. As you probably know, though, doing nothing with your savings really means that you're losing money relative to inflation. So the responsible thing to do with your extra cash is to put it to work with some long-term investing. And this episode's sponsor, Wealthfront, makes that—
Well, that's crazy. I actually didn't, when I looked at this video how pirates and rebels make their money, I didn't expect to hear about roadblocks. I thought we was just gonna see like boats getting robbed like from pirates on like ships and stuff. Yeah, that was a really interesting video, really good video. If you guys did enjoy it, make sure you do leave a thumbs up, and if you do enjoy my content, it'll be amazing if you guys could subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.